Hey everyone, I'm Gracie. Welcome to the Grace of a Military Child podcast. The world should know how unique military children are. We may look like normal children on the outside, but we go through some pretty extraordinary circumstances that shape us to the leaders we are today. Keep listening to hear the incredible journey this week's guest has been on. Hi Debra, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. So tell me a little bit about your parent who served and what that kind of was like.
Well, my dad served during World War II back in the 40s. Okay. And I wasn't born until 1957, so it was pre-me. But, we heard lots of stories about his time in California. He was at Camp Roberts in California, and he is a mechanic by trade. So he did logistics work at the base and after his basic training. And he served there till the end of the war. So, but he's a really great guy.
Yeah, I'm sure. What's it like, growing up, even though you're kind of like post his military service, what's it like growing up, having a parent who served in World War II and, even a grandparent who served in World War I?
Well, my whole family is very patriotic. My mother actually had 4 brothers that all served in World War II also. So both sides of my family were very patriotic. And I grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi, right down the road from Keesler Air Force Base. And my dad had his own business. And of course, being ex-military, a lot of military people came to him and, he always tried to help them out whenever he could. But, it just, it instilled a great sense of pride for me. There is a big veteran center, which Keesler Air Force Base was on one side of us and the Biloxi VA was on the other side of us. So we grew up with military all around us. But one of the things that I remember growing up that kind of made me sad was that going to public school, a lot of my friends, their parents were in the Air Force, being military children, and they would come and go, and we would lose touch. So that was probably the one sad thing that I remember about growing up around the military,
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that, saying like the hardest thing is, losing friends and moving as a child. It's the hardest thing because, most children don't grow up moving. So it's hard to even relate to them in that aspect. But did you ever experience like going to Keesler or, being on base since you were so close?
Oh, yes. In fact, when I was growing up, the base was more open than it is now, because of all of the turmoil in the world. But you could get passes to go out there, and they always had air shows, being in the Air Force Base. And then we had the hurricane hunters that were there, and there was always a lot of activities. But, you could go into lots of different things there on the base. And it was really something to see.
Yeah. You kind of had an outside view, like you were a military child, your, family is military, but you had that view of seeing it all from the outside of, you're not in it, you're not moving, you're not, living on base, but you're kind of all watching it happen. So what did you learn from that rather than what you would experience while moving?
Well, I think that you grow up learning how diverse the world is. You know, you meet a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures, and you know, you gain a lot of knowledge about the different ways that people do things and believe, and you know, they all brought pieces of them with them when they came, and they would share that with you. And I think that helps to make us all grow and to be more understanding of other people.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, living on bases. It's a lot of coming and going, but there's a lot of, you know, connection between the military children. And there's a lot of, you know, like you said, diversity, because, you know, I have friends who had lived in Germany. I had a friend who moved to Hawaii. So like when she left Texas, she moved to Hawaii. And so, you know, she was able to bring that Texas culture to Hawaii. And then like when she moved back to Texas, you know, she has that Hawaiian culture in her as well. So, you know, kind of moving all about, you gain this worldly knowledge of, you know, it's not just what's in this little bubble of where I am now.
Right, right. So one of the things when I was a teenager, the Vietnam War was in full swing, I guess you could say. And, you know, a lot of the young people that I grew up with, their brothers and sisters were being drafted into the military, you know, and of course that was a big dividing era for the country, you know, because a lot of people were against the Vietnam War. And so the people that were going overseas, it was really hard on them and their families. So being from a military family, you know, we tried to support them as much as we could. And you know, that was really a difficult, probably one of the most difficult times, you know, that when I grew up, because I had friends that their brothers didn't come back home, you know, and that was really hard.
Yeah.
They'll have a prisoner of war bracelet, Corporal Dodge, and which he didn't make it back, but they have a website where you can go online and you can track your bracelet, you know, and the people and the families keep in touch with you. And I think that's really, really something good.
Yeah, that's really unique too about, you know, that era of time and, you know, something that you can cherish and look back on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What is it like, you know, being in that time frame and kind of trying to process what's going on? You know, you said you were just a teenager. So how is that, you know, challenging? How did you kind of, you know, walk through those times?
Well, you know, you saw a lot of, you know, that was the make love, not war era, you know, all that kind of stuff. People were fleeing to Canada and other places trying to dodge the draft. And, you know, I really couldn't support their efforts. I tried to understand their thoughts, you know, I mean, you know, going to war isn't for everyone, but, you know, that, I think they tried to make the people that did go and serve and try to protect us and protect our freedoms. You know, I felt bad for them because I felt like they were so misunderstood and so unappreciated. Maybe that's the word I wanted. They were so unappreciated. And, you know, I've always tried to be supportive of that, you know, of them.
Yeah, this is something that's like, you know, widely displayed in like history books and, you know, taught in public schools and private schools and, you know, things like that nowadays. So what is it like, you know, comparing the way it's taught in schools and to, you know, this generation to, you know, living in it and experiencing it firsthand?
Well, I don't. Have you ever been to the World War II Museum? Have you ever been to any of those?
Probably at least once. I am not sure. Yeah. I can't remember.
It's really amazing. But I think some historical, I guess when certain areas document historical data, they're very accurate. And then I think that sometimes they try to edit it to make it to what they want people to believe it was. You know what I'm saying? They're not very factual in everything. I actually have some friends. I know some people that were in Vietnam. They're still alive, of course, and they have really horrific medical problems. And it's because they were sprayed with Agent Orange, you know. And, you know, it's just amazing. I mean, these men were young kids, you know,
right,
over there fighting. And that was really a tough war. You know, the chemical warfare over there was something that they have lived a lifetime with, you know. And I think a lot of people forget about that. You know, they see people and, they, you know, you hear about people with PTSD and some of the side effects that they have that we know is there, but I don't think unless you really live with some of the things that they have to bring home with them, or they do bring home with them, that we try to understand. But I think it's probably something that, you know, it's so personal and it's just so hard to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You know, your life is never the same again.
right. And, you know, tracking, you know, all the way back to, you know, some of the first wars all the way to, you know, present day that's experienced in, you know, these men and women who serve. You know, coming back and seeing, you know, from my generation of, you know, these men and women coming back home, you know, injured or wounded, you know, you see that, you know, I live with that on a daily basis of seeing that firsthand, the struggle, you know, any soldier who deploys, you know, comes back with at least something, you know,
Right.
PTSD is going to be a huge, I guess, factor that you notice firsthand, you know, first when you come back, you know, that transition from being deployed to coming back to the civilian world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know, my grandfather, he never wanted to talk about, you know, the things that he had seen overseas. And, you know, I think the older when I was younger, I didn't understand it, you know, why he wouldn't talk to us about it. But I think the more that you learn about it, the more you kind of understand, you know?
Yeah. Learning about it and learning about like what actually happened, you have more of a respect saying, okay, you know, I know that it's a hard, you know, conversation to have. And like, I understand that if you don't want to have that. And, you know, even a lot of the guys now, it's hard to have that conversation with too. So it's not something that it's just like, you know, a specific generation. It's, you know, all, you know, generations. Sometimes it's just hard to have those conversations of what actually went on over there and what actually happened.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people signed up for the military after 9/11. Okay. So a lot of people signed up in World War II after Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Yet my dad was 17 when he joined the Army. And that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, he couldn't even buy a drink anywhere. He couldn't have a beer, you know, but he could fight, you know?
Yeah.
And because it was just the times. I mean, to think now of a 17-year-old joining the military and going into war, parents would just be horrified to know that their child was doing that. And, back then, parents, they understood that everybody had to pull together, and it was really, I think,
Yeah, it takes, it literally takes an army to fight a war. And like, you have to form that army. You can't just, say, okay, go. Like, you can't send like random people off necessarily. You have to form that army. You have to form that brotherhood, that strength between everyone, and then be like, okay, now, off you go. And, mentioning 9/11 and, that's like my generation. That's the war that, I've lived through. And
right.
So, seeing, I wasn't born when 9/11 happened. I was born about 6 months later, something around there, 9 months later.
Yeah.
And so, seeing it unfold, like, from a child all the way up until now, kind of, when the war is, I guess you can say over. So like seeing that on all unfold, it's an emotional journey. Like it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, I have no desire to travel to New York. But if I went, the one thing I would go for would be to see the memorial.
Yeah. I haven't been, I went to New York, prior to that being built, but it's on my bucket list to see it and to see kind of, where all of it is and how it takes shape. But, it's just some of those things that these memorials like are just breathtaking.
Yeah. It's so sad to think about why we have the memorial.
Right.
But it's such a blessing to know that people remember.
Right.
Yeah.
I will never forget when we were in DC. First off, my trips to DC include museums and monuments. That's pretty much it. That's my DC trip. And food because we have been so many times. We have our specific food places now. But I will never forget, it was like our second trip to DC. It was in 2013. I believe it was 2013 or 2014. And we were kind of just walking around like aimlessly. We were by the Capitol building. Like I could see the Capitol. It was huge. And we kind of stumbled upon a memorial that we had. I think we knew that it existed, but we weren't kind of sure exactly where it was. In my I was probably about like 10 or 11 at that time. So like my 10, 11 eyes, may have saw it a little different. We may have been kind of hunting it down, but we kind of just stumbled upon it and it was a Purple Heart memorial. And so that was insane.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I believe it had just opened too. And so that was just incredible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My daughters had a friend and her husband was serving in Iraq and they were securing a building and outside of, I believe it's Kabul, for sure how to say it, but he was electrocuted and nearly died. It was so horrible. I mean, he was 20 years old and, it was just, it was a wire that they had thought that, wasn't live. And they had told them to get everything off the roof. They were securing it. And there was two of them that were actually electrocuted from it. And, you think about people in war being shot, devices exploding, but there's so many other things that happen to people. And, when you think about all of the people that sacrificed, the people that, and my story, getting back to the Purple Heart, the people that saved him, I mean, the people that immediately jumped to, his rescue, were the only reason that he survived.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you think about the Purple Heart recipients that didn't make it back, but there are so many that did, and the things that they did that were so courageous,
Mm-hmm.
that I would enjoy seeing that. I would enjoy that monument. Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a special one. And there was like a little section for each branch too, which was, it was really cool. And, not kind of knowing that it was there, but, kind of just stumbling upon it was really cool and, incredible to see because, there's so many out there that, like you were saying, like people who jump to the rescue and you don't even know who these people are half the time.
Yeah.
And there, it's just, that military brotherhood of, just jumping to someone else's aid, that selflessness of, okay, we're going to save your life, but I might put my life in, harm's way at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Is. Yeah. And so like, seeing all of these monuments and memorials, you have to be kind of important to, get one of these monuments or memorials. And so it's just really cool to see, Purple Heart getting one. And, it's fairly new compared to what's there now. But, we were just in DC a couple months ago. And so I hadn't seen all of these things, in quite a few years. And so going back, as an adult now and seeing it from adult eyes instead of, little girl eyes, it's a lot different. You have so much more respect for these things. And like the World War I and II monuments and the Vietnam and, things like that. It's just incredible.
It is. It truly is. It truly is.
Yeah. What kind of experiences have you had kind of, saying that your family is very patriotic? What kind of experiences have you had, growing up to kind of shape that into part of who you are?
Well, I think just the example that my parents set, they just the way they lived their lives,
Yeah.
And then I've always found myself attracted to things that support the military, whether it's the military dogs or, Mike Ritlin, I follow him and then the Wounded Warrior Project has been one of my favorites for a long time. And that, of course, is how I met your dad.
Yes.
And that was amazing. That was amazing. And so, I just, I don't know. I don't know that you can put your finger on just one or two things. I think it's just maybe how you were raised and live, you don't, it's not really an expectation or something that you seek out, but it's just in your being.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that, you can learn it. You can definitely learn it. You can, as you grow older, you can, apply it to your life if you don't grow up in, a family that's patriotic or, necessarily shows the support to the military. They could support the military, but if they don't show it, it's kind of like a different thing. But you can teach it to yourself, but it's definitely harder. And you can basically instill it from birth. Like, growing up, I was always taught to, stand for the flag, hand over my heart, things like that. And so it's something that you learn from a young age and growing up. And then you can kind of role model it for other people and for those around you who may not, necessarily understand. And that's one thing that I kind of enjoyed about, I went to a public school for not 9 years, until I was 9 years old. And then I went to a military school. And so seeing the comparison between the two different schools is insane. Like there was not much of a military population where I was because we were a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. And so, not many military population there. So it was a weird transition to an actual military school. Where, we actually, I don't remember doing this in Ohio, but like every morning we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We did the Texas pledge, and then we sang a song. Like that was the morning routine. Like morning announcements would start. You'd stand, you'd say the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas pledge, and it was like a weekly thing. Well, every day you had to do a different song. So like, I don't remember many of them, but I believe it was like Tuesday or Thursday would be My Country 'Tis of Thee. So like every single day there'd be a new song that you'd sing. And so, that was just something that we did every single morning.
Yeah, we used to do that too in school. Your Brando flag, God bless America,
Yes.
Battle Hymn of the Republic. I mean, it just, and now it's just gone by the wayside,
Right.
But you got to love Texas.
I know. Yeah, Texas is military USA. 1,000%.
Nowhere else is. They are. That is true. That is true.
Yeah. And, the closer you are to a base, I mean, we lived on base. And so, but the closer you are to a base, the more military populated it is, the more military USA it is. But if you go anywhere else in the state, like it's the same exact thing. Anywhere in the world, it's just kind of this little bubble of military, on the base. And then, most of the time it spreads a little bit outside of base because, a lot of families live off base and, their children go to public schools still. That's just the life that, families choose. But in Texas, the whole state is that bubble. It's all, military town there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love him. He's 96 and he'll be here. And he's lived with me for quite a while. But we went last January to Texas and went down. He wanted to go see the border wall. So we just did a little tour of southern Texas, but it was he just loved it, and he has a World War II hat and he wore, and, people would always come up and talk to him, and to him, it's pretty amazing that people still appreciate his service.
Yeah.
Me tear up.
Yeah. As time goes on and, while it may have not felt that way in the moment that, service was appreciated back in the day, as time goes on and how, it unfolds and as, more is learned because there's still, constantly things we're learning about these wars. But as time goes on, the world grows more and more appreciative of, what actually went on and what took place and, comes more appreciative of the service.
I agree.
Yeah. And, it's sad that, it took, so long, like, it took decades, but, it's come to a point where it's like, okay, it's about time now. Like,
that's true.
Yeah. And there's definitely a lot more, to do, but yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, I am looking to be a doctor. in something. I'm not sure, quite what yet. I'm currently in college.
Yeah.
I am getting a bachelor's in health science with a minor in marketing. And so I'm kind of looking to see from there. I go back and forth whether I want to do like marketing as my future, but I always kind of land back on something in the medical field. I fell in love with anatomy when I was like, well, I guess you could go all the way back. So when I was a child, my mom did a blood drive. And so she got these little blood cells. There were red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And they were these little kind of like stuffies, little stuffed animals, and, just of different blood cells. And so I found that to be the coolest thing. We don't know where they are, unfortunately. We think they got lost in a move, but they were the coolest thing. And she literally she wanted to get them for us. And so she literally had to give her blood, and then she got those in return as like a thank you gift. And so she did that for us. But so I loved, those little things. And then when I was in 5th grade in Texas, one of our, we did kind of science rotations. And so our teacher would teach one specific science class, and then we'd move on to the next teacher. And that teacher would teach another science lesson. We'd move on to the next teacher. She'd teach another science. And then we'd just move on down the line through them all. And so like the first semester, the first half of the year was kind of just like your basic science stuff. So weather and like rocks and I don't know, whatever else it was. And then in the second half of the semester, or of the year, the second semester was, they called it 6th grade science rotations, to prepare us for 6th grade, since we'd be going into middle school and it would be a lot different then. And so, my teacher did the digestive system. The following teacher did the muscular system. The next one was brain, and like the nervous system. The next was the cardiac system. And then I think nervous system was split between the brain and like nerves. And that was 2 different teachers. And then there was one more. I forget what they focused on there, but I just fell in love. I loved it. That was my jam. Like that was what I loved. And muscles were my favorite. That was what I loved to do. I would come home and like one of our assignments was to label, like just get little pieces of paper and tape the muscles onto like either your body or someone else's at home. And so I was like, Kaylee, come here. And I grabbed my sister and I taped all these muscles to her, these little card labels. And I loved that. That was like my thing. And so I did that all the time. And then once I started, middle school and high school, I kind of didn't remember it that much. And I didn't love it because, that's what you don't learn that stuff. In 6th grade, we did not learn that. They're like, these are your 6th grade science rotations. And I'm like, we did not learn that in 6th grade, but okay. So when I was in, I believe it was 10th grade, one of my options was anatomy and physiology. And so that was my 3rd science credit. I had done biology, I had done chemistry, and then I was like, I'm doing anatomy. I'm going to take anatomy. And so I literally passed that class with like a 96 and a 98 for the 2 semesters. And so that was like my thing. And then, coming into college, it's like, what do you do? What do you want to do? And I was taking anatomy that year and my mom was like, you need to look into medical. And I was like, no, not happening, because I had grown up in a hospital setting and things like that. And so I was like, no, I can't deal with that. Like on a daily basis, I can't work in that environment. And so it was you don't have to do surgeries. You don't have to work in an ER. You can kind of do other things. And so she suggested athletic training or physical therapy. And so I fell in love with athletic training. I loved it. I love sports. I'm a huge sports person. So it kind of combined medical and sports. And I was like, okay, this is perfect.
A grandson that is majoring in sports therapy.
Yeah.
It started out he was in nursing and in college. And so he changed his major to sports medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he really likes that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where I am, where I'm going, what was offered was exercise science. And so that's what I was kind of going for, exercise science. And it taught, kind of like the movement of the body and, basic foundations of that. But then I was like, okay, I was so far ahead because I did dual enrollment credits in high school. So I was like 19 credits ahead. I hadn't taken a single science class. I was in biology. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to take kind of my first year and fill it with a couple science classes. And then my second year, my sophomore year, I'd have to fill it with like a ton of science classes and basically other random pointless classes. And so I was like, okay, I feel like I'm wasting my time here because one, I'd be taking like 2-3 science classes, a semester, and I was not doing that. Everyone says science classes are the hardest, and I can agree with that. So I struggled through biology. I aced anatomy, but struggled through biology, and I knew I was going to struggle through chemistry. So that's why I haven't taken it yet. And so, I was like, I'm not taking, just science classes basically my sophomore year. I'm not doing that. And so that's when I made the switch to health sciences because it's a basic health degree. I can go anywhere with it. There were so many free electives that I could plug in whatever I needed for my graduate degrees. So I went that route. And then I'm like, okay, maybe athletic training is not for me. Maybe find something else. And so I looked into physical therapy again, said, nope, not for me either. And so I kind of looked into marketing at that time. Like reading through my advisor notes and all the meetings I have with her discussing all of this, it's hilarious going back and forth of what I'm doing. But so I'm like, okay, well, now I need to find something else. And I really want my doctorate. So I'm kind of settled on primary medicine and rehabilitation right now. And so that's kind of, from what I understand of it right now, it kind of does, it's a basic doctorate degree. It does everything. You get like a general MD or DO. And so you kind of just do that. And then you specialize in primary medicine and rehabilitation. And then you go from there. And I'm like, okay, this might be a good field for me. I can specialize in sports from there. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes from there.
So has the COVID epidemic affected your college
Yes.
class? Do you feel like you've maybe missed out on, there's something to be said for being in a group meeting. You learn from other people,
Yep.
So doing your studies online is good, but you lose a little bit of the advantage of meeting other people and getting new ideas. And do you feel like that's affected you at all? I mean,
yeah. So from when I moved to Florida in 7th grade, all the way through high school, I did virtual school. So I was kind of, I already understood the virtual setting. I already knew all of that. And so when it came to COVID, I was in my senior year of high school. I was in my last semester and COVID hit. So my graduation ceremony was online. So So I didn't get to walk the stage or anything, which, broke my heart. And so that was like the biggest thing that, has stuck out all of this that, resents. Like I resent that. And so that was like the first like major thing where I couldn't walk the stage. I couldn't do all of that. And then going into to college, my school had put a plan in place when COVID first started, and they kind of carried that through all the way up until this fall 21. And so my first full year, my freshman year, was I signed up for classes over the summer. Once I was admitted to the college and I did my orientation, I signed up for classes, and I signed up for statistics, biology, visual arts, history, all on campus. And then world music, culture, and one other class. Forget what nutrition, human nutrition and wellness. And those two were both online. So I did 3 on campus and 2 online. Well, because COVID wasn't going away anytime soon, my schedule got flipped around. And so my statistics class was moved completely online. There was no like Zoom lectures or anything. It was just online. My art history class moved from in-person to Zoom. So I still had Zoom every week for that. So like I still got to talk to people because she'd make us, she'd break us out into small groups. So we would, work on projects together. And my biology class, it's kind of funny the way that they did it. So my lectures, she pre-recorded. And so she just posted them on YouTube. And so they were ready for us to watch whenever, it fit best in our schedule, which was nice. But then we had a lab because it was a lab component class. And that was broken up into, the class was split in half. So our class was pretty sure it was 64 students. And so she split it in half. Half of us would come in for the first half of the class. We'd switch out, and then the second half would come in for the second half of the class. So we weren't all there together. And so that's how we did it for that semester. And then the following semester was the spring, and it was pretty much the same way, except they did not put the classes marked on campus. Like if they were online in the fall, they were online in the spring. So I took 4 classes online. My 5th class was anatomy, and my lecture was on Zoom, which was great, but it's also, again, hard to meet people, hard to, understand topics. So it was a lot harder. You're taking anatomy and physiology. It's the hardest class you're going to take in your life, more or less. And taking it online is definitely more of a challenge. And then again, the class was split in half. There were 32 of us to a class, I believe. And so 16 of us came in for the first half of the session. 16 of us came in for the second half. And we all had our own tables. We kind of did some partner work, but it was very, very minimal, very rare. Everyone was masked for, the entire time. So that was, something else. We did do our quizzes. And then we'd do like a little lab. And then we would, if it was an exam day, we'd come in, we'd take our exam. And then as soon as you finished the exam, you left. So I normally did, it was a 70 question exam. I'd finish it in 20 minutes. And so I'd do my exam, I'd get up and leave, and that's it. So it was definitely different. And then the summer, they started opening up again. I choose to do just about all my classes online over the summer, just because it's more convenient for me. So all my classes were online for the summer, just because I wanted it that way. And then this fall, everything went back to normal, and I was so happy. I did
Yeah.
I only had one class on campus because my degree that I'm, working on now is a primarily online degree. That's how it was before COVID happened. That's how it is now. So I only had one class on campus, which was still nice. So I got to meet so many friends and, kind of just live the college life. So I found myself in office hours every week, at least once a week with my anatomy teacher, just because I'm a teacher's pet. I'm a nerd. So, that's one reason why I was always there. But it was nice to just be around, other people and, other students would come in. And so I got to meet other students that way. And so that was just nice. And so the whole lecture was on campus. The lab was on campus. We had the full time. And then, this semester, I'm really looking forward to because I have 2 classes on campus. I have one class that's over Zoom, but I just chose to take it that way because it's a little easier in my schedule. And then I have 3 online classes, and I'm super excited to actually start to live the college life that, I missed out on for so long because of COVID.
Yeah. Are you going to have any intern, projects that'll be available to you? Will you be able to go out and work with some of the professionals?
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Right. Most likely I'll end up in an internship just to do it. My degree, there are some degrees that require internships. Mine is not one of those. Just because it's so general. Most of my classes are, health information systems, U.S. healthcare systems. So very general healthcare classes. And it's more geared towards health administration more than anything. So, I will probably do an internship somewhere in something. But, it's nothing that I'm heavily looking into yet, since I will be working at the college next semester as well. But we'll see. We'll see what happens kind of as it goes on.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is great.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. It has really been nice talking to you.
Yes, it's been nice talking to you too. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, I know we kind of got off track. Did you have
No, that is okay. Yes, no, that is perfect. It's always nice to get off track sometimes too.
Yeah, yeah. So I have granddaughters, and 3 of them, and we get along so great. I always enjoy visiting with them, and they keep me in the loop on what they're doing, and so it's really interesting. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I see your dad, on his posts on Facebook and stuff. He is so proud of you girls. Anything else that you had for me that you wanted to ask me before we end up, or?
No, I think we got a lot of good information.
Hope one day to get to meet you. Maybe if I get down to Disney World, I'll look you up when I'm in Florida, and we'll have a coffee or something.
Yes, I'm always down for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Grace of a Military Child podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to follow, like, share, subscribe, review, and comment. You can also follow us at Grace of a Military Child podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for more podcast-related content. If you or someone you know is a military child who would like to be on the podcast, please send us a message to one of our social media platforms, or you can send an email to grace.of.a.military.child@gmail.com. Tune in next Thursday to hear another incredible journey.